Well, at least Thursdays, yeah.
Thursdays on the morning.
The rest of the week, I would not recommend it as a
Well,
solution.
it's certainly therapeutic.
Yeah.
I find it so anyway.
Hey, we're going to fire up the therapy show again because we had a really good time at that.
Yeah, you should.
Real quick, let me just, I got to, I was going to ask if the gain's any better. So are we?
Oh, yeah. No,
Yes.
You're sounding fine. Sounding good.
All right.
I have done everything but start the show, I think.
You
Did
have
I do
live.
Yeah.
Are you
We're live on video. Hi, video.
Well, video.
It's one of those days Hangout was giving us a little panic attack of its own. But I think it's stable now.
It's taking nice 5-second breaths.
Deep breaths, Hangout. All right. Let's do this. Here we go.
Yeah.
When I first tried the Daily Tech News Show, it was so good. I told 2 friends about it, and they told 2 friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. It gives me super tech news, super informative guests,
and super fresh smelling hair.
To support the show, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, April 20th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Mr. Scott Johnson of the Frog Pants Network, host of the Morning Stream, purveyor of gaming news and beyond. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm still basking in the hot, sweaty glow of that potential PlayStation 4 leak, which I know you guys talked about a little bit at length yesterday. And man, gamers everywhere just can't believe that the console world might change right in front of our eyes. But
we got a long email from Yaru, who is a longtime contributor to the show. Thank you, Yaru, talking about how he is upset. He is upset about the idea that they would put out a new version of the PlayStation because he's worried. It's always about worries, right? He's worried that the developers will dumb down their games, that they won't make them better, and so it'll be a waste of money, or that, and then that Sony might let them create a different version for the higher level. Anyway, it's all about fears.
That's right. And now today we have a very specific fear that PlayStation's data will not be encrypted after all.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of that. We're going to talk about the latest in the encryption debate, the latest shots fired by the tech companies a little later on, but let's start off with the headlines. European Commission has issued a statement of objections to Google's practices distributing the Android operating system. You're going to hear that Google's been charged with things, and it's kind of a charge. But essentially the way this process works is the Commission says, these are the things we think are problems. Google, you now respond to them, and then it's a back and forth. They've been doing this with search results already. It's a long process, and we're still waiting for that to be resolved. Now they're starting it with Android. Here are the problems. Android has 90% market share in most European states. That means that they could abuse their market share because they have such a preponderance of the market. The objections stated by the European Commission are related to 3 policies. For one, to use the Google Play Store app on your Android device, manufacturers must agree not to sell any non-Google Android-based phones. They must pre-install Search and Chrome, and Google provides financial incentives to make its search an exclusive pre-installed option. In other words, no other search engines. Google has 12 weeks to respond. In a blog post, it stressed that its agreements are entirely voluntary, and any manufacturer can download Android for free anytime they want.
Interesting. I can't wait to see how that pans out. Microsoft's Phil Spencer announced a big...
Whoa. I have something to say about this.
Continue.
Sorry. I thought I was giving you a chance to say something, because here's the thing. I think the fact that Google says, hey, if you take our Google Play Store, you got to do this search thing. I think that's fine, personally. I think the interesting thing about the financial incentives, it's like, well, financial incentives are fine unless you have 90% of the market, and it becomes like, hey, it'd be a shame if something happened to your, let's give you a little money. Maybe that's an abuse of power. But the one that I'm 100% behind is Google saying, if you want the Google Play Store, you have to agree not to sell other devices with Android-based operating systems. That takes away the benefit of an open source operating system. Yeah. If you're basically bullying out the benefit that having an open source operating system has. And when Google says, well, it's voluntary, yeah, you can choose not to have the most popular operating system that's on 90% of the phones and see how well that works for you. I mean, we've seen that Cyanogen and Amazon have had mild success, but it's really hard for them to get manufacturers to make their phones if those manufacturers then have to give up making Android phones that have the Google Play Store on them.
Doesn't it seem from if I'm playing Google advocate here, I'm not comparing them to the devil or anything, but if I'm playing advocate of Google outside of that one provision, kind of makes sense that their services being more integrated into how Android works and how things are distributed, searched for, and found, and whatever. It makes sense that they're using established core Google services because there's a financial reason for that. It's
sure.
You have to create something new every time. You've got underlying underpinning tech that kind of runs everything. They just also happen to be tied to their core services. I don't see anything wrong with that. In fact, I would see a lot of things wrong with not doing that. That would seem like bad business for Google to not have that as as part of the standard experience. So that part I have zero problem with any of that. But you're right. This last little bit is it's just a little weird given what Android is supposed to be and the way they've positioned it. It's just a little strange and outside.
And there has been a case one time in Southeast Asia, and I horribly can't remember which manufacturer it was, but one of them was going to come out with a third-party Android-based operating system that was entirely modded, so it didn't look like Android, and Google made them stop.
Weird. Yeah, open source, baby. It's closed. Microsoft Phil Spencer announced something kind of big on the blog yesterday, or today actually. Microsoft has now ceased production of the Xbox 360. Existing inventory, I don't know how much of it, will be sold out, and availability will depend on what country you're in, and at some point maybe what store you're in. Xbox Live servers for the 360 will remain live. No word on whenever that would be considered out and done. Xbox 360 launched in November 22nd, 2005. And it is survived by its offspring, the Xbox One.
Mm. Memorials could be sent to Phil Spencer, care of Redmond, Washington.
I mean, we all knew that they would come. It's the fact that it's, the 360 was very successful, and the fact that they've gone this long still making new versions of the box, it's actually kind of a testament to the success of the box. The first Xbox, when they were done and it was 360 time, they were freaking done. Stop production, stop making software, stop support, stop everything. Because here comes the new guys. So the fact that it's gone, as long as it has from 2013 till now, we've got 3 years now. That's actually pretty good for players if you were still interested in that as the less expensive available platform. So, they're not going to get 10 years out of the thing, but you did all right.
A lot of people were looking at the 360 as sort of a bargain version of the game console because of the backwards compatibility and the cheaper price when the Xbox One first came out. So I'll be curious if this is opening the way for Microsoft to put out some other kind of console.
Yeah, it'd be good. So Sony always tends to do this thing where they try to extend the life of the previous generation console up to an additional 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
They'll support it for as long as they can, and a lot of that depends on the success rate of the console, and they've done pretty well with that.
PlayStation 2 was the top-selling console long after the 360 and the PlayStation 3 came out.
Yeah, even the PS1, same thing. They made the little tiny version of it. They kept kind of revising it. They like to do that. Microsoft, if they go any longer than this, would really be breaking new ground. So personally, this feels about right to me, and you got to do it sometime, so may as well pull the cord.
The Electronic Frontier Foundation filed a lawsuit today against the U.S. Department of Justice. The suit seeks disclosure of documents showing whether companies like Google or Apple have been compelled to provide technical assistance for surveillance authorized by the Secret Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. The EFF requested the documents under the Freedom of Information Act, but were told that no responsive applications for warrants existed. The EFF's like, you didn't look very hard, so they claim an exhaustive search was not conducted, hence the lawsuit. The new USA Freedom Act requires the court to declassify significant decisions or new interpretations of law. And I think that's the EFF's point, is telling us there's no responsive warrants right at the moment is not what the Freedom Act says. The Freedom Act says you have to tell us if you made a significant decision, which having Apple create software to decrypt a phone, for instance, would be an example of a significant decision, or if you had a new interpretation of the law, such as under the All Writs Act or anything like that. They're essentially saying, look, we see what the FBI is doing over here in public court. Is the CIA or the NSA doing the same thing in the secret court?
Yeah. Also, we need a Freedom of Information Act for the Freedom of Information Act, it feels like. Because every time this is invoked, it's like, we don't have anything. Well, all right. Well, how do we know that?
Because we told you.
We need some kind of like transparency on the finding of the Freedom of Information Act request.
Well, and that's what the lawsuit. This is your remedy, is to say, well, fine, we don't believe you, we're taking you to court.
All right, makes sense. A posting on the website of the U.S. Office of Director of National Intelligence, ooh fancy, shows the U.S. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court issued its first authorization to collect phone records under the new USA Freedom Act passed last year in 2015. The new law allows for the secret requests for targeted metadata from telcos rather than through bulk collection. That seems to affect people more outside of this country than ours, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it does. It's talking about foreign suspects. And again, this is the same act we were just talking about, the USA Freedom Act. And the other thing it says is you can't just go collect all the metadata. You have to decide who it is you're after, and you collect their metadata. And then this court decision says that you can also get the metadata of all the people that person called. You don't have to show anything else. Just the fact that that person under suspicion called is enough. But this is the first decision under that new act. So
I would watch a television procedural, kind of CSI-like, right, called U.S. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, because I don't know what they do, and I think that sounds fascinating. So
Fisk.
And they'd all be very young and attractive and
Agent Wilson Fisk.
real go-getters, man.
Yeah.
Wilson Fisk.
Echo showed off a working prototype of an electric self-driving car, the Lessee. The Chinese phone and TV maker has invested in Faraday Future and Aston Martin, you may recall. You're like, oh, that's the ones. Echo hopes to create a fleet of autonomous taxis with their version of the car. More details to come at the Beijing Auto Show on April 24th. Echo also showed off 3 new smartphones, the Le 2, the Li 2 Pro, and the Li Max 2. None of them have headphone jacks, so they beat Apple to the punch. These are all going to use USB-C ports for delivering audio to your ears.
I believe firmly that when we get around to the WWDC or wherever this is announced for the new phone, they're going to not have a USB jack or a lightning. I am 100% sure it's going to be one of 2 things. Either it's just going to be there like it's always been there and it'll be much ado about nothing, or it'll be some kind of trumped up Bluetooth-like solution with 2 pods that sit in your ears and they're wireless, and that's it. And if you want to get regular headphones in that, there'll be an adapter you can buy. But I don't think there's any way that we're going to be putting headphones on our head where the other end of that headphone is a USB-C jack. Can't be.
Don't be right. Just don't be right, okay?
I don't want to derail this, make it about a whole other issue, but I just needed to come and go. I need those guys to do their thing, and then if it's
it would bother me less if Apple would just use a USB-C port, and it was like, oh, we're just getting a new connector for headphones. Eventually, that was gonna happen. The mini jack wasn't gonna last forever, I guess, and I could get myself a little more comfortable with that. But we have a perfectly good working stereo headphone jack. Why do we need to mess with it?
Right, and the phone does not need to be any thinner if that's your problem. The phone is plenty thin. I don't need it snapped in half. Oh my gosh, that's more on that on future episodes of Daily Tech News Show. Google's email client Inbox, which I use pretty much exclusively on mobile now. I love it. I don't use it so much on desktop because I feel like it's kind of ill-suited for desktop use, but it works amazingly on mobile, at least for now. Anyway, it can now take all emails about an event and show them together, including whatever's changed. So, for example, I canceled my Oculus Rift pre-order today. I did that.
That's not a meeting, but
no, no. But the idea is that if I've got a string of emails that are the same, and it includes things like cancellations or changes, you're less caught off guard because you're going to see all this stuff together. At least you're less.
Yeah, that long string of emails about whether we're meeting with Fred and Ginger on Tuesday becomes a lot easier to make sense of.
Exactly. Or, other threaded things that aren't necessarily threaded but are associated one with another, and that makes perfect sense. There's also an option to share these links to Inbox rather than emailing them using Chrome extensions or iOS or Android share functions, which is currently how it works. Sort of a read it later sort of thing. And finally, it's easier to preview newsletters, click through to particular articles, and minimize when you're finished. I think that's great. Really, it's just an extension of what they already do with putting all the promotions in one place and putting all the social in one place. And this is a little more granular, but sounds useful. I'm excited about it.
BizTech Africa reports that Jongla announced a new lightweight messaging app at the Mobile West Africa conference in Lagos. Jongla is only 2.5 megabytes. Put your head around that. And it works over Edge and GPRS, as well as faster connections. The service is free, claims to use less bandwidth than WeChat, Viber, WhatsApp, and others. And users can also chat through the web with contacts that have not installed the app. So they're basically saying, look, we get it. Connectivity isn't great in a lot of places. We're launching this so that you can chat even where you only have that GPRS connection, and that other person doesn't have to install our app. They can just use their browser if they want.
All right, let's test this out. Tom, you on Jongla yet? You got your Jongla?
Well, I don't live in Nigeria, so.
Oh, all right, forget it then.
I don't get that. Typical Nigeria getting everything first.
The Verge reports Facebook sent out a verified user survey asking which method of monetizing posts seems the most interesting to them. I did not get this. I kind of want to answer it. Anyway, the options were listed: tip jar, branded content, sponsor marketplace, donate option, call to action button, and revenue sharing. So you would sort of say which one you think sounds the best. Survey was part of a larger group of questions asking how participants used their personal profiles pages.
Now, people get way overexcited about surveys. They send surveys out because they want to know whether people want options. And there's no cost to adding options to the survey. So when they put tip jar in there, it could mean, as The Verge is intimating in this article, that Facebook is considering putting a tip jar up, similar to what YouTube has done. And that could be interesting. It doesn't mean that they do plan to do that. It just means that whoever created this survey said, should we put tip jar in there? And somebody said, yeah, why not? Let's see how many people are interested in it. And in fact, surveys are usually conducted in order to find out if something's a good idea or not. So they may not have decided to do a tip jar, and then suddenly everyone says, ooh, we would like a tip jar, and they change their mind, or vice versa. They may have decided to do a tip jar, they do the survey, and people are like, no, we don't want that, and then they don't do it. That's why you do the survey.
Yeah, internet gets weird about being asked. Yeah.
You're asking me, so you're going to do it. You're just going to force it. I'm like, no, that's why we're asking you.
Well, I think it's good. I'm glad they're asking. I'd rather have it asked than just say one day, here's your thing, and there are no other ideas. Like, if anything, this gives you a little bit of a window into their process, or at the very least, a little slice of that. You know, I'm fine with it.
And it's interesting. Like, yeah, all right. I don't. If I got the survey, which I haven't, I don't know what I would say about tip jar. I guess I'd say why not.
Mm-hmm. I probably wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But more and more, this is either a sign of age for me or something. But more and more, I want us all to remember that it's okay to ask questions, to have some discussion, and not have immediate internet disdain for a thing that you don't know totally about yet.
It's an interesting phenomenon, though, that we do often form things as a question that we mean as an accusation. Mm. So we're like, well, why do you think they're tearing up the street? Right? And it's like, because they want to annoy me, or because it's a stupid idea, right? But you're not actually asking why. It's the tone of your voice. So I get why. I think it's that thing where we read emails in the worst possible tone we can come up with in our heads by nature. And so it's like, when Facebook sends a survey about a tip jar, we read it as though they're going to force a tip jar on us. Yeah. Or maybe we're excited about it. I don't know.
Or I post on Twitter that I'm excited about the new Magnificent Seven movie coming out, and people everywhere already hating on it. Like that, for example.
Yeah.
So I've made it personal, Tom. I've made it personal.
So much hate. The market for surgical robots is heating up. Intuitive Surgical Incorporated makes the Da Vinci system. It's often used to assist in hernia repair. It can be used in a lot of different things, though. Intuitive shipped 110 Da Vinci systems last quarter, up from 99 a year ago. These are expensive items, though, so they're making a lot of money off that. Procedures using Da Vinci robots rose 70% worldwide from a year ago. Intuitive is kind of alone in the market for now, but not for long. Fortune notes that Medtronic plc, which is funded by Johnson & Johnson and Alphabet, will enter the market soon, and there are a few others. So your next surgery, well, hopefully you don't have to have a surgery, but should you have to have a surgery, you might have a robot in there with you next.
A doctor who performed an appendectomy on my son a year and a half ago suggested that he felt like in the next couple of years, these sorts of surgical devices, aka this machine, this robot, would soon be the thing that took your appendix out, and it would be less reliant on people doing it. Also, eye surgeries and some other stuff, and he seemed very bullish on that market. He's just one doctor, one surgeon, but he felt like we're headed that way. It sounds like maybe we are.
Well, and it's the next step. It's a tool, right? I mean, our imaginations immediately leap to like Rosie the robot performing surgery with whirring knives and axes, and that's not what this is. This is essentially just a more automated and fancy scalpel, where it's like you tell it what to do and then it does it, right?
Yep.
So, but eventually AI will start doing this. That's way down the road, though.
We accept our overlords. We're ready for them. It's fine.
We do. Thank you, overlords, for being you. You're the best. And also, big thanks to everybody who submits on our subreddit. Submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. You guys are the best. Big thanks to Steve I.O., Captain Kipper, and all the folks who get in there and submit things. I believe we had another one from a few other people. So join us on there, if you will, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And that is a look at the headlines. So one thing we didn't mention in the headlines today was a letter from 4 tech coalitions. Now, these represent the big ones: Google, Facebook, Apple, et cetera. The big companies are parts of one or more of these organizations. Dropbox is in there, Facebook's in there. The 4 organizations are the Reform Government Surveillance Organization, the Computer and Communications Industry Association — that's a lot of people are members of that — the Internet Infrastructure Coalition, and the Entertainment Software Association. She got a bunch of game makers in there as well. They sent an open letter to Senators Burr and Feinstein, and to refresh your memory, if you don't recall, Senators Burr and Feinstein have published a draft. It's not even a proposal yet, but a draft of a bill called the Compliance with Court Orders Act of 2016. Now, the draft says that any product, services, applications, or software distributed by a person must be capable of complying with subsection A. Which leads us back to subsection A, which says if a court orders a company to do so, that company must provide information in an intelligible format. If such data has been made unintelligible by a feature, product, or service owned, controlled, created, or provided by the covered entity or by a third party on behalf of the covered entity, it has to make it intelligible. Or it has to provide assistance as necessary in making the information intelligible if it can't do it on its own. So there's 2 things going on here. If I read this right, one is this act, if it became law, would force companies to provide assistance if the court orders them to. They wouldn't be able to say no, and they would be compensated. That's in the bill, by the way. Second, and this is the part that's got people upset, it says that your data has to be created in a way that you can comply with the act. That's the any product, services, applications must be capable of complying with subsection A. Subsection A says if data has been made unintelligible, you got to make it intelligible. So in a roundabout way, without telling you how, it says, we don't know what you're going to do this. We don't care. But if a court orders you to make data intelligible that you made unintelligible, or in other words, encrypted, you have to be able to unencrypt it. You have to be able to decrypt it. So the open letter to Senators Burr and Feinstein warns of unintended consequences of that bill. They say, look, we want to comply with law enforcement. We want to help catch the bad guys. But this would force companies to prioritize government access over digital security, which could lead to more vulnerabilities. In other words, your priorities are out of whack. If security isn't your number one priority at all times, it can lead to unintended vulnerabilities. Those could be exploited by bad actors. Just the fact that you've created a way to decrypt it could be exploited by bad actors. Number 2, it makes it easy for other governments to demand the same. In other words, maybe governments don't want to run a company out of their economy right now, but if it becomes the law in the United States, their home country, to do this, then that country will say, well, we definitely want you to do that here too, because you're already doing it. And number 3, it would not prevent the use of strong encryption made outside the U.S., weakening U.S. competitiveness. So in other words, make it so that you can decrypt it by all the companies subject to the U.S. law. All a consumer needs to do is go find some encryption software not made in the United States. And Bob's your uncle. They've encrypted everything, and you still can't get at it.
And people will. Let me throw a couple of scenarios at you, and you tell me if these are part of this draft. If I say to you, well, all right, government, assuming this all went through, I've got this, I'm Apple, I've got a bunch of iCloud data. Currently it's encrypted, and going forward, maybe we can fix that, but what about all this legacy data? And then the bill would say what to me? Sorry.
It would say that you must provide any product, service, application, or software distributed by you must be capable of complying with subsection A. So you're in violation of subsection A, Apple.
All right, so then I say, well, all right, fine, we'll see what we can do about that. But also now we got these thumb sensors on phones and iPads, and some other people come through. HTC says, yeah, we got one on the back of our phone now, and that's encrypted. That security, it's biosecurity.
Here's what I, as the court here, blah 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 blah. Can you hand me over the data or not? It says here you have to make it intelligible. I don't really want to know the details. You just have to do it. That's the law.
So blankety is my problem. I mean, of course, I ask you these things knowing the answer, but I feel like that's my biggest problem with this is this sort of, we don't care how you do it. It's just got to be here. It's got to fit in this nice little square peg hole here. And if it's not fitting in there, then sorry, you're out of compliance. See you later. Like, it just feels so one-sided, and so we don't care how you do it, just do it. That is like the worst argument in the world, levied against anything with any complexity, in my opinion. And I don't want to be Mr. Joe Ranty Rant Pants, but it just feels wrong-headed from the get-go to me.
And I think we've talked a lot on this show about the idea of, well, if you make something able to be decrypted, it can lead to those other vulnerabilities. But the other side of this is the business case, which maybe you don't care about. Maybe you're not very sympathetic to these billionaire companies, and I get that. But keep in mind that, let's say the European Union is not a place that is going to allow this kind of law, right? So this law goes into place. One risk is Thailand, Singapore, maybe Australia, a bunch of other countries say, yeah, we're going to pass the same law, so you have to be able to decrypt stuff here as well. But the European Union says, no, we are very anti-surveillance here. We are not going to allow that. And in fact, now all of our customers in Europe won't use those businesses that are subject to that law. So Apple, Microsoft, Facebook all now have to, and something they've already started to do just because of public sentiment, but all have to put their servers in Europe, because otherwise people won't use their services, because they're like, yeah, but there's a law there that says that you have to be able to decrypt it. That's not fair. Put your servers over here. And don't forget, Microsoft is fighting the Department of Justice in the United States over whether the government can subpoena information off a foreign server. Microsoft has some emails stored in Ireland that the Department of Justice would like to look at. Microsoft says, you got to get Ireland to sign off on that. You can't just say we want it. So they're fighting that. If the U.S. wins that case, suddenly just putting your servers overseas would not be enough, because the government could go after those. You'd have to move your headquarters out of the United States in order to avoid this law and actually be able to provide stronger encryption. So this sounds pretty impossible, and it probably is, but let's say Microsoft just moved out of Redmond into Canada and said, we are not operating in the United States anymore, therefore we don't have to use this law, and therefore we can provide strong encryption. People in the US could go get it. So what's the next step? Make it illegal for someone in the United States to use encryption that isn't subject to this law? Probably.
Yeah, see, this is the problem. It's this top-down effect. It's very trickle-down. It's not so simple as just, we had an attack or we had a threat, we need to find out about the threat, Microsoft, please turn over the data. I know that's kind of what they want, but this is so much more far-reaching. It's not just general competitiveness in the U.S. and elsewhere from existing companies. It's also very squashy when it comes to somebody trying to do something new or innovate or change the way things work in positive directions. Progress to be made all across and up and down that ladder is not put on hold necessarily, but man, it's a chilling effect. Yeah. And why would you want to do that from any perspective on any side of the aisle and anything? Like, it's a most precedent-setting idea I've heard of in a long time. And the only hope I have about the whole thing, trying not to be too doomsday about it, is that it's a draft, right? Things can change, constituencies can speak up, these associations can say their piece, and they have. Like, stuff can be done, things can be said, arguments can be had, and drafts can turn into something very different. You and I talked before the show. Is there anything that we could talk about that was like a middle-of-the-ground solution that worked for everybody? Is there some happy medium or a bridging of the gaps? I don't know what that is. It's very hard to find it.
Right. And at the end of this letter, the four industry organizations say we are ready and willing to engage in dialogue about how to strike that balance, but remain concerned about efforts to prioritize one type of security over all others in a way that leads to unintended negative consequences for the safety of our networks and our customers. Yep. In other words, hey, man, it's always an arms race. We will help law enforcement get better at this job. What law enforcement would be better served by is figuring out how to crack really strong encryption or socially engineer passwords to really strong encryption of the bad guys. Because what's going to happen to the really bad actors if this law passes is they won't use any of the services subject to this law. You're still going dark with the people you really want to get. Yeah. So it doesn't solve that problem. And that's where the industry could do better to help the government figure out, like, okay, here's how you actually go after these guys, right? And get the black hat hackers on your side. Get the gray hat. I guess you're not gonna get the true black hats, but get the gray hat hackers on your side. And the reason that is difficult is nobody trusts each other anymore because the government has said, well, yeah, we're going to use this to spy on everyone without telling you. Suddenly, the gray hat hackers don't want to help the government. So there's a lot of fence mending and reassurances that need to happen. That's where the efforts should be focused, in my opinion.
Right. And, there's other things to focus on. I said this on TMS today. I know it's a little reductive, but I still say, Feinstein, Burr, you got other stuff going on that matters to your constituency, and the industries that depend on this encryption and depend on our relationship with them. You got to just lay off this and go work on another thing. I don't know what the other thing is. You got something in your states that it's huge. I guarantee it. So go do that.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who wants to do something bad can multiply two very large primes together and create a secret key. Yep. That no other company in the world has, and use that to encrypt things. You can't make that illegal. You can't make multiplying primes illegal.
Right.
You can. It won't work though. It won't help you.
Nice job. You melted that all down to I'm going to use that. Anytime this subject comes up with anybody in casual conversation, I'm going to talk about the math end of it. Because you're right. What are they going to do? Take my abacus and kick me on the street? Like, what are they going to do?
No multiplication, no peace. All right, let's get to our pick of the day from Russell, who noted that we were talking previously, Scott, about subsea cables. He recommends the book Tubes by Andrew Blum, which gives a great explanation of how subsea cables work, how they're installed. It's a great look at the amazing physical infrastructure that is the internet. So yeah, if you're curious about how all this stuff actually travels around the world, check it out. We'll have a link to it in the show notes as well. It's called Tubes by Andrew Blum, because it's not a series of tubes.
No, it's not. Well, I mean, it is in a nice, it's easy to explain when you say it that way, but no, certainly it isn't. That sounds awesome, and I love the cover of that book. I think I may pick that up.
Send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. And you can find more picks, including this one, at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. A few messages of the day. Josh, the chef from Detroit. I got to meet this guy when I was in Detroit shooting Connected Tech last year. Great guy. And then I happened to be just shooting in a different location the next day, and he goes walking by. It's a small town, Detroit. You know everybody once you've been there for an hour. He says, Tom, I am one of the few people who took advantage of Amazon's previous offer of a monthly Prime membership for $7.99 a month. They offered this for only a month or so, about 2 or 3 years ago, but so far they've allowed me to keep it. If they do change it, I will gladly pay the $99 for the year. But in the meantime, I'm saving a whopping 26 cents per month, which is now allocated to my monthly DTNS Patreon. And he sent me a screenshot showing that he had added 26 cents to his Patreon support. But yeah, that is the deal. $7.99 a month. You're actually saving money then.
Yeah, I know I haven't been on the show since this was announced, but to sort of weigh in, I'm all for them breaking this up into chunks of monthly options versus yearly options. Like, giving us more choice with this makes a lot of sense for them to maximize what they're trying to do with Prime Video more than anything else that this sort of tackles, or being able to get Prime on its own monthly, or Prime by itself with no video, or whatever. If they want their video projects and their stuff like Man of the High Castle level work, they want that in more eyeballs. They gotta figure out ways to make it more make it work for people in a way that's less of a yearly commitment. So I'm all for this. And even if that means you get one guy for 2 months who binges on Bosch and High Castle and 2 or 3 other things and then gets out, that you're still getting somebody you wouldn't have gotten anyway. So
And I'm not saying the Amazon terms of service are a little vague on the use of play on, but I'm not saying that. Ryan wrote in and said, I work full-time as a mobile wedding entertainer. My coverage area includes much of central New York State as well as northern Pennsylvania. In many cases, during a pre-event venue survey, I've driven into areas where cellular service just disappeared for dozens of miles and at night in unfamiliar territory. And when I run out of cached maps on my phone, there's no data connection to continue downloading, so I pull out my old trusty Garmin out of the glove box. Gets me unstuck. Smartphones and tablets are getting smarter all the time. However, at present, they still seem to be jack of all trades, master of none, which do things like book reading and navigation well enough for most cases, but the single-purpose devices are the best at their particular task and can fill in those small benefits that you don't miss until your phone or tablet just doesn't measure up.
It sounds like a response, or a bit of a response anyway, to our the Kindles. And we got a lot of outside of the show feedback on that day, and it was all over the map. But it seems that there is a fair number of people who like single-use device, at least for now.
Yeah, and that is always going to be true, that the single-use device will be better at its task than the multi-use device because all of the focus is on that one use, which is why I think GPS devices will always exist for people who need them for search and rescue or serious orienteering, things where you don't want to rely on a multi-use device as much. It's a smaller market, though, and I think that was our point. But Ryan makes a great point about that, and I would say desktop computers are becoming that as well. Like, they aren't going to go away, but you only need a desktop computer for a particular task, and if you have that task, then it's very important for you.
Yep, and desktop computers, because that market may be shrinking at whatever slow rate it's shrinking, you just may end up paying more in the long run, and that's the only real downside. Is we may end up paying a little bit of a higher fee to have our big multi-function pro-level desktops while the rest of the world's running around with tablets and phones.
Do people ever call you Scoot?
Sometimes. My brother used to. Yeah.
I don't know if Marlon, the guy from Trinidad, did this on purpose, but he wrote, to Tom and Scoot. Here's a way to play podcasts in Android right from the Google search app worldwide. If you search for the podcast such as, I don't know, the Morning Stream podcast, you will see the last 4 to 5 episodes, and you can hit play and start streaming. Plays in the background in your notification tray, so you can continue to use your phone as normal. Scout would be glad to hear, and then he said Scout, would be glad to hear that most of the Frog Pants shows are there. But he says no Daily Tech News Show, and it's funny, like some people are seeing Daily Tech News Show in the Google Podcast section of the Google Play Music service, and some aren't. So I'm not sure why that would be.
I have the same exact problem with the instance. The instance is in there for most people, and a few people aren't seeing it there. It's got to be some caching thing. I can't figure it out to save my life. The only show I have in there was the new Hotline Monday show that's been submitted since and should be approved any time now, but I don't know why it's showing up for some and not others. Like Daily Tech News Show on my test on my Android tablet showed up no problem. So DTNS is there. But I've heard from others that it isn't, so it's real weird. I don't know what's going on with that.
But this is a cool thing about the search app, allowing you to like get it's not the same as being a podcast app. Let's be fair, but it does give you access to it on Android, so that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
I do wish that Google would just say, "Oh, right, we own FeedBurner. If you've marked your RSS feed as a podcast, we will automatically include you." Like,
you'd think that would be such an easy path. I don't know. I don't know. I still worry about the future of FeedBurner. In fact, the fact that there's not that integration here makes me even more worried, because
I think they own it.
Yeah, they
there's like 4 guys who work on it. Maybe that's overestimating. There's like 1 guy who works on it, and he's like up on the 2nd floor. He's the only one up there. They forgot they even have a 2nd floor. They forgot they own that building. They've leased the bottom to another startup, and he's just still plugging away at FeedBurner.
I'm of 2 minds. It's like, Google, I'm so glad you're doing this with this listing, but what took you 10 years?
Hey, man, they're here now. You got to get mad at them for being here now?
Oh, it's fine. Be here now, but where were you when I was growing up?
It's not going to change the past. We're not here to talk about the past, Mark McGuire. My wife works for Google. All right, that is it for this episode of the Daily Tech News Show. Thanks, Scott Johnson. What's been going on in the Frog Pants world?
Oh, there's so much happening. I don't even know where to start. So the easiest thing to do is just follow me on Twitter at Scott Johnson, as always. And there's some big stuff coming up. For example, the early part of next month of May, it's Free Comic Book Day on the 7th. And every year, for 4 years running now, there's been a tradition where I create some original artwork based around comic books that we ship to anybody in the world absolutely for free. And this year we're doing it again. It's just kind of a yearly way of saying thanks. We cover postage and everything, little 4x6 prints made just for this event. So that's going to happen again. So keep your eyes on what I got going on over there, so you can sign up early and get it before the cutoff. Again, at Scott Johnson on Twitter, and frogpants.com will surely have a link when that goes live.
May 7th is Free Comic Books Day.
Yeah, Comic Books Day.
That is also the day of the Night Attack Live in San Francisco, which I will be at.
Oh my Lord!
At the Piano Fight in downtown San Francisco, 4:30 in the afternoon.
Free Comics Book Day.
Exactly. So check that out as well. nightattack.tv. Thank you to everybody who supports this show. dailytechnewsshow.com/support is the place where you can learn about what you can do, but it's pretty simple. On an ongoing basis to support the show, we don't take any advertising. All of the support of the show comes from you. So if you want us to continue to have money to run the show on a monthly basis, please pledge at patreon.com/DTNS if you're willing to keep the show going. If you can't do it on an ongoing basis, things like we're going to send Justin Robert Young to the Collision Conference in New Orleans to do some interviews, see how that works. One-time events, maybe equipment purchases come out of people who just give us PayPal. And then there's our store. If you're like, I can't really justify just giving money, but I could justify to my wife or my father or whatever buying a shirt, you can do that. We got shirts, we got mugs. They're delicious looking mugs. Check them out. That's at dailytechnewsshow.com/store. But all those links are together at dailytechnewsshow.com/support. If you can't afford to do anything, that's fine too. Just tell somebody about the show. In fact, if every single person in the audience would just tell one other person how to subscribe to Daily Tech News Show that would like the show, that would be wondrous. So please, if you're willing, go out and tell people to subscribe to Daily Tech News Show, or just leave a review in the iTunes store or the podcatcher of your choice. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 593-2459. Catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And visit our website at dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with the aforementioned Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Nice.
Tight show. That's good.
Tight.
Good.
Tico would say. Rico.
Good show.
Tico.
Titles:
Yeah, what do we got?
Live Free or Math Hard. Blah, blah, blah. Give me the data.
Live Free or Math Hard's really good.
Yeah,
This one I
keep
like.
going, but yeah, I'm kind of in love with
This
that
next one I like, and it's probably because I'm showing my age. Stop the Mathness.
Stop, that's good too.
Not bad.
Xbox minus 359.
Well, you guys are on it today. Good stuff.
These are all good.
I just really like Stop the Mathness. If
Stop
you
the
dyed your
madness.
hair platinum blonde, Scott, it would be perfect for this.
Yeah. Well, I need a haircut.
Joe Ranty Pants got in there too.
Oh, you might like this one, Tom. It's where to go? Darmok and Jalad at Jongla.
A chunk. Yeah, you can only message in phrases from your culture.
Perfect.
You can't actually write full sentences.
I have an entire issue with that episode, but there's also surveys.
Shocked that you haven't.
Shaka, when the walls fell.
It's like, really? Your entire language is limited to like one story?
It's a long
how do you-
story.
How do you create new stories? How do you tell the story?
Shaka made a nice crepe with mushrooms and cheese, please.
Yeah, at some point they stopped. Yeah, they stopped and said, "Here's the line. No more stories. That's our language."
And its survey says tip jar.
I
There's a
like
draft.
Burr. It's unencrypted in here.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one from Shane. I'll vote for that one too. So my top two favorites are Stop the Mathness and Burr. It's unencrypted in here.
Oh, you don't like Live Free or Math Hard?
Live Free or Math Hard's pretty.
It's two. Isn't that New Hampshire's license plate except for the math?
No, it's the name of the Die Hard movie. Live Free
It's
or
Live
I
Free
know.
or Die is New Hampshire's slogan, which Live Free or Die Hard was a play on, and this is a play on the movie, which is a play on the New Hampshire.
Yeah,
system.
and I like it because Math Hard, it is hard math.
Yeah,
And
math is hard.
Live Free is,
Yeah,
antithetical to what.
Eh?
That's why I like
got
it.
layers, man.
Deep.
I like Stop the Mathness too, though. It's really good.
Stop the madness. But,
Blah 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 gave me the data.
I like them all, actually. I haven't heard a bad one today.
so
You can't take the math from me. Of course, it's a sucker for a Firefly reference. Good one, Tinvec. You can't take the math from me.
well, once you get them quantum computer thingy-majiggies online, it'll be all moot.
Yeah, it won't matter then.
Yeah.
Or until they get the mind readers. That's what I'm waiting for.
That changes everything, by the way, mind reading.
Yeah, because it's like, fine, do whatever you want. It'll just like zap your brain cells and figure or your.
We'll just hear what we'll have your intent. We'll know if you're really truly running for president or if you're a psycho.
Yeah.
We'll know.
It'd just be like that.
Are you talking about me?
No, the movie based on the a Stephen King novel, Dead Zone, or no, not Dead Zone. The one with Christopher Walken, where you can see the future.
That's Dead Zone.
Dead Zone.
Yeah, they made a TV show about it too.
Touch his hand.
What was the Tom? Have you seen The Path at all on Hulu? You been watching that at all?
No, I haven't. Is it good?
Yeah,
I've heard good things.
Really good. The acting's really good. It's freaky though, because it's all. I mean, they're not leaning real hard into it. But it's basically like, what if there was a cult kind of like Scientology, where everybody's convinced of this thing, and it's
Right.
only the rich ones of this, and you climb a ladder, and there's a lot of parallels to that. But man, the kind of getting into the way people work when they're confronted against their like lifelong beliefs or face.
Mhm.
And, I mean, that's what they're experimenting with. I think it's fascinating. I really like it.
What show is this?
It's called
The Path.
It's got Jesse Pinkman in it. In fact, it works really well so Aaron Paul is the main male star. It works really well as fan fiction for where did Jesse go after he got in that car. It really does. Like
He drove off and joined the Path.
it actually works pretty well. But Michelle Monaghan's really good in it. Like
I love her. She's great.
yeah, it's extremely good. I think it asks a lot of hard questions, and I think it might have outside of that was last year, so we can't count it. Like this year's best TV intros, like credit intros. I'm voting for that so far. I haven't seen anything I like better. Pretty
Interesting.
yeah.
Well,
Check it out.
it's not like I need another show,
Yeah, it's not.
but
Embarrassment of riches, but if you get around to it, it's there.
wonder if I could convince Schwood to watch that one.
You might.
Is it hour-long episodes or half-hour?
Hour each. It's a drama, straight up drama, well made. You know,
Yeah.
he's incredible in it. It's really good. I'm surprised how much I like it.
Yeah, because our service level agreement on Spoiler in Time is one library show, one current show. Our current show has been Better Call Saul. It's going to become Game of Thrones. Our library show is Justified.
Yeah.
I don't really need another show, but
If you get
I
bored,
like that.
I can't sleep. I'll watch this or whatever. Then
That put you to sleep? Or?
well, no, it'll. I mean,
It's like the warm milk of television.
I was surprised how it hooked me in.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, I'm looking forward to episodes as they come out because they're only doing the weekly release thing. So
It's funny. My television watching has become such an assigned task. I don't want to call it work because I enjoy watching these shows, but I have to keep up on these particular things that when I don't have to watch anything,
yeah,
because I'm like this, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to remember anybody's name. I can just have it on.
it's like video.
There's work television and regular and mindless television.
That's kind of how I am with it's video games for me. I
can't play a video game without thinking a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like I have to play all the new stuff so I can talk about it, and it starts to not feel. It's weird. It's not really work. Probably like novels for you, like when you guys have to dive into some new sword and laser thing.
Sure.
You just start to realize, well, not only do you have to do this, you kind of want to do it, but you also kind of have to do it, and it changes.
Yeah. Well, and it's when you're doing it to talk about later, you have a different mindset because you're like, oh, I have to think about what I'm going to say about it later.
Yeah.
You can't miss a bunch and just be like, oh, whatever, I'll catch it.
I think part of it is you become a much critical consumer
Yeah.
for that content. It's
Which I
really
think is
hard.
good.
Well, when you review a movie, when you watch it, you suddenly have to be really cognizant of, well, I just can't sit back and just enjoy it. Now I got to really think about what I'm seeing.
Yeah, in some cases I got to take notes. I got to, track of it.
Video games are the worst because if you have to play through a really bad game or just a bad part of a game, it's just like, why?
Yeah, or a good one that's just super long, and then you're behind, and you haven't finished, 2 or 3 long ones, and I don't know. It adds up. It can get a little overwhelming.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
Hard work watching television shows and playing video games.
Right. It's a first podcaster's problems.
Doesn't
Well,
sound
isn't what's considered difficult work? I mean, there's physically difficult,
sure.
but the more fatiguing work is actually more mental. Like you feel more exhausted than, say,
That's what all the bourgeois say.
bougie. That's what all the bougie people say.
For real. I could go do yard work all day and be less tired than if I did 5 podcasts in a day. It just drains me mentally in a way that is exquisitely unique.
Well, and I've seen a lot of people writing about this more and more all the time, but we don't have downtime built in like we used to.
Oh.
You can always have something playing in your ears. You can always have something in front of your eyes. Like even if you're doing yard work, you could be listening to an audiobook. If you're just sitting in the doctor's office, you can be on Twitter or read a book or play a video game. Like when you're on an airplane, you've got the internet now. Like it's
real, man.
It's like you have to plan your downtime.
Yep. And that is hard for me. I struggle with that.
And that's what I think your sister is talking about a lot when she talks about device addiction.
Absolutely she is. And as she speaks it, or she talks about some of that stuff, it just rings true to me. Or even in her case, she talks about information addiction and how, people she'll stay informed, but she's not glued to some news channel. She just can't. She won't do it. She refused, but for example, as an experiment back in 9/11, she refused to, I think I talked about this before, but she refused to look at any images that were of the buildings exploding, people falling out of the windows, any of that stuff. She just avoided it because she knew it was out there.
Yeah.
She wasn't trying to be naive to it, but she wanted to not let it get all up in her.
Yeah.
Not to overwhelm.
Well, it's basically choosing not to be traumatized.
Basically, yeah, and also lets her focus where she can do good, which is I need to feed my kids. I need to go to work and get my job done. I need to get the car fixed. I need to be a decent citizen and go to this charity. Like she has a real interesting perspective on all that stuff, and how she's my sister, I don't freaking get it because I'm the worst. It's like, did you guys hear about the guy that jumped out of a plane and was on fire and killed 3 chickens on the way down? You got to see this video. Like I'm
here. Let me show it to you.
Right, and I can't resist. So yeah, she's better.
No, I think there is definitely something to the idea that you have to put your brain on a diet, for lack of a better word. And I know that sounds dumb.
No, I think it sounds smart.
But it's just a fact that if you keep your brain thinking about, stressing about stuff all the time, it's not good for it. I
agree. As much as I agree, it's still hard.
And yet I come from a culture that says if you're not doing something, you're lazy.
Exactly. There's a generational thing that our current lifestyles do not help.
Yeah.
Like we were told that you should always be. I mean, I was telling Ibbot the other day, I don't remember the last time I was bored. I literally decades since I was bored. Bored. Like I maybe in a movie I don't like, but I'm not
bored in a way that you couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
Like I've had moments where I'm like, wow, I don't actually have anything to do right now.
Yeah.
But it's not like I couldn't find something in a half second, right?
Yeah. And even then you feel like guilt. It's weirdly guilt-ridden.
Yeah.
Time. That's weird. Like, for example, this Pringles can. This was empty yesterday. Now there's 3 chips left. Now that's kind of a problem as far as I'm concerned. That's like news consumption. I should cut down, put it right over here, and never touch it.
Right. Don't bring the Pringles into your house to begin with.
Exactly.
That's why I don't watch any television news anymore, because I didn't find any of it was making my understanding of things better. Only making it worse.
In fact, it makes it. That's the whole thing. They start introducing a bunch like, what is this? What does it have to do with anything other than stretching your hour-long newscast to 3 hours because Wolf Blitzer had like the runs or something, and you had to fill in for him.
It makes you worry about things you would have never thought of, and you don't need to, and don't have anything to do with you, and exactly.
What's so bizarre is their system so pretty much ensures that the most banal stuff gets all the attention, and all the important stuff tends to get buried by all the banal stuff. It's like
Well, pretty soon the stuff that deserves attention
Ooh.
gets dissected for its banal stuff.
The County of Los Angeles is now going to send out its sample ballots materials electronically, if you would like.
Oh, that's nice.
Of
Yeah.
course we would like. Do that.
Subscribe to eSample Ballot.
All I
Yes,
ever get is a
please.
giant booklet.
And so agreeing to this allows us to bulk surveillance of your entire... What? No, I'm just kidding.
Cool. I had one question for you, Scott, but it's about schedule in a
Oh,
couple.
next week is Tom's gone, right? 27th?
Yeah, on
Yeah.
Wednesday, I'm out.
No problem.
Correct.
And
Who do we have guesting? I forget.
Jen Cutter,
Okay.
she'll be in.
She's Canadian. She's into hockey and gaming.
Video
right?
games, Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
in. Great.
She's a friend of Darren and mine, and I think Shannon. Also in June, we're swapping you on the week of the 7th. So instead of doing that
You know
Wednesday,
what? I'm out of the post, and I don't know that people are. Maybe they're fascinated by this. I don't know. It's not like it's a
Okay.
big deal, but I'm going to just stop the broadcast. So just wanted to say
Bye,
goodbye, everybody.
everyone.
Sorry to interrupt. See y'all later.